There's a couple of reasons why we're doing this here at the clinic. One is a professional reason, and one's a personal reason. Professional reason is that our clinic, everything we do here revolves around kind of 4 basic things, and the 4 basic things is helping people get their bodies more balanced and then teaching them how to eat, move, and think healthy. The most challenging one is teaching people how to think healthy and do things like stress control in their lives. And so when I knew Phil was doing this book, it fits perfectly with our model at the clinic here. At the end of the night, we've got these little flyers here, one of which here, as you see on here, is if you come back in here someday, you can save this for as long as you want. You can get a free smoothie. So you can use a certificate and just stop back here someday and get a free smoothie. You can't do it tonight, but you can do it another time. But there's other things on here. Basically, this little certificate thing supports all 4 aspects of wellness. Just a great little resource thing. But my personal reason that's the most important to me tonight, the reason we have Phil here, is that Phil is the most calm person and at peace person I've ever known in my entire life. I've known him for years and years. I've seen him develop spiritually, and it's really been inspiring. And he's the type of guy that just knowing him made me want to read the book. And my wife and I have enjoyed reading the book, going to our cabin. We'll go through and we have our own way that we do it. It's a unique book, and it's been a lot of fun. So this is Phil. Bolsta'S.
Well, hi, I'm Phil Bolsta'S, and we're here tonight to launch my new book, Through God's Eyes, Finding Peace and Purpose in a Troubled World. It's funny, when people find out I've written a few books, they often treat me differently, like I'm somebody special. But I know better, so do you. Because you ask any writer, artist, musician, and they'll tell you that their best work comes not from them, but through them. Anytime my ego tries telling me otherwise, that's when I run into trouble. And checking your ego at the door becomes especially important when you're trying to live a spiritual life, because you will not make any progress until you learn the value of humility. Fortunately, life never seems to run out of opportunities to remind us to be humble. Case in point, my first book, 60 Seconds, One Moment Changes Everything. It's a collection of 45 uplifting, life-changing stories from prominent people I interviewed, like Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Neil Donald Walsh, Carolyn Mace, and others. And it was translated into 4 languages. The last one, it's coming. The last one, Portuguese. I got an email from my agent saying that the publisher was worried that I'd be upset, but they couldn't use my name on the cover of the book in Brazil. It turns out that in Portuguese, the L in Bolsta'S is silent, which leaves bosta, which means excrement. I thought it was hilarious. What do I care what my name is on the cover of a book in Brazil? And I told that story to a friend of mine from Iran, and she told me that in Farsi, Philip means elephant. So of course my sister started calling me elephant excrement. And I told that story to a friend of mine from Austria and her 12-year-old daughter out on the sidewalk one night, and they laughed for 5 minutes straight. Seriously. And whenever the little girl's laughter would subside, she'd say something like, and the Oscar goes to elephant poop. And she'd collapse and giggles again. Yeah. Let me tell you, when you have 12-year-old girls calling you elephant poop, it's easy to stay humble. So, if you happen to be in Brazil, and you happen to be in a bookshop, and you happen to find a copy of 60 Segundos, you'll see that the name on the cover is Philip Charles. That's my first name and my middle. I love meeting people from Brazil because I get them laughing in 10 seconds. Some of you may be wondering why I named the book Through God's Eyes. Well, allow me to read just a few paragraphs from the start of the book that explains that. The title, Through God's Eyes, reflects a pivotal moment of personal enlightenment. At a 1998 weekend workshop, Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe, founder of the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism, shared a life-changing story with his students. He said that after watching a TV nature program in which a lion savagely ripped apart a gazelle, he had been distraught. Retreating into meditation, he implored God, "How could you allow such carnage and tragedy to exist?" He told us that the response he received humbled him and restored his faith in divine intelligence. I felt and saw through inner revelation how this incident was experienced from a higher level as pure love, and that it was beautiful beyond description. Ibrahim explained that this world may appear cruel and harsh to our unenlightened eyes, but even the brutality inherent in the animal kingdom has meaning, purpose, and a stark beauty all its own. Indeed, looking through God's eyes, we see that simply by living our lives, we all serve each other in ways both simple and profound. From that day on, I challenged myself to see the world through God's eyes, to the extent that I could, of course, so that I too could witness every moment unfolding with beauty, love, and perfection. Granted, that is much easier said than done, especially on days when I am the gazelle. But I found that the more I train myself to view the world in this way, the more peaceful and grounded I become. It then becomes easier to follow the core teaching of the ancient wisdom presented in these pages. With love and devotion, align your will with divine will and be a source of love, hope, and healing energy to all who cross your path. What I'll be doing tonight is talking about 4 spiritual principles from the book. I'll share a personal story that shows how these principles relate to daily life, and then read an excerpt from the book. And I'll be assisted in reading the excerpts by my friend, Jerry Hall, because the format of the book is such that my narrative alternates with inspirational quotes from other people. To make things as smooth as possible tonight, Jerry will read the quote, but she won't read the person's name who wrote the quote. And the narrative and the quotes support, build upon, and flow into each other for a seamless read. The first principle is surrender. When you surrender to life, to the universe, to God, whatever you wish to call it, you become in sync with the rhythms of life. You start seeing connections and patterns that you may have been previously unaware of. I'd like to share a story from my first book, 60 Seconds, which also is available. For many years, I was a volunteer for Alina Hospice. I'm a certified massage therapist, so I did massage for hospice patients. And one day, 7 years ago, I got a call from Ann Lutkin, the volunteer coordinator for Alina Hospice. And she asked if I would do a massage for a 59-year-old man, a non-smoker who had lung cancer, because he was having trouble breathing and he was panicking. And his wife thought that some massage might help him calm down. I said, sure, what's his name? She said, Charles Patuznik. And I froze, and I thought, oh my God, that's got to be Chuck. See, 22 years earlier, I was working for a volatile entrepreneur who ran an investment newsletter, which was essentially a vehicle for him to tout the value of rare coins he sold. I found out later, as I was there for a while later on, that things were a little shady there, and he ended up going to jail for coin fraud about a couple of years after I left. But we hired Dorsey and Whitney to review the copy in the newsletter, and the lawyer they gave us was Chuck Patuznik. And he asked me on the phone one day, because I was in charge of coordinating the copy approval with him, about a story we told of buying a large collection of rare coins from a collector out in Colorado. And I told him I'd check on it. I did. I found out it was made up. So I called Chuck back and I told him the story was fabricated. And he immediately said, whoa, if you're going to tell these Little Red Riding Hood stories, I can't be a party to that. And he resigned on the spot. And that act of integrity impressed me a lot. I only met Chuck once, I think, and I probably spoke to him just a handful of times. But the impact he had on me didn't fade. In fact, it grew stronger over time. Every time I'd hear a conversation about corporate attorneys or see a magazine article about best lawyers in the Twin Cities, Chuck's name would flash in neon letters in my mind. You know how it is sometimes when you meet somebody and something just clicks and you're in their orbit and they're in yours? I didn't know how or why or when, but I just sensed that our paths would cross again someday. So when Ann called, everything fell into place. I felt a sense of peace come over me because I knew it was time to complete the circle of energy that Chuck and I had started so long ago. I went to his house a couple days later. I was let in by a family friend and brought to his bedroom, so just Chuck and me alone. He was at the end and couldn't move. He was in bed. So all I could do was reach around behind his neck and shoulders and just massage him that way. And as I did that, he murmured, "That feels incredible." He couldn't talk much. His voice was faint and weak, but he was mentally alert. After about 5 minutes, I said to him, "Chuck, you and I go way back." And he cocked his head and kind of raised his eyebrows and not really with it. So I just, again, started massaging him from behind like that. And at one point, I just whispered, "God bless you, my friend." And I didn't think he'd hear me, but he went, "What?" So I said it louder, "God bless you, my friend." And he just kind of grunted in acknowledgement. And at one point, he lifted up his finger to swipe at his nose, and then his arm fell heavily to his side again. He had breathing tubes in his nose, so there was blood, and he had blood smeared on his finger. So I took a Kleenex, and as I was wiping the blood off his finger, I just marveled at the twists and turns life can take. Here, 22 years ago, I was just a young kid in business, starting out, looking up to a savvy corporate attorney, 11 years my senior. And now, here I was comforting him in his final hours. A few days later, Chuck passed away. I think of him often. Just by being who he was, he made me a better man, deepened my faith, and gave me a glimpse into the mysteries of the universe. And the moments I spent at his bedside were sacred, and I'll cherish them all. Sure. The word surrender raises a red flag for people who believe their life will unravel unless they stay on top of every last detail as only they can.
Surrender is the simple but profound wisdom of yielding to, rather than opposing, the flow of life.
Attempting to exert control over every aspect of your life is like swimming upstream. Progress is slow and difficult.
When you struggle against this moment, you're actually struggling against the entire universe.
Choose to receive God's grace and you begin swimming with the current. You are in the flow and life gets easier.
He who is in harmony with nature hits the mark without effort and apprehends the truth without thinking.
Surrendering to divine will does not mean you are sacrificing your free will or diminishing your capacity to reason and act.
As your faith is strengthened, you will find that there is no longer the need to have a sense of control, that things will flow as they will, and that you will flow with them to your great delight and benefit.
By humbly pledging to surrender your will to divine will, you are tacitly agreeing to carry out God's will by courageously and honorably striving to realize your full potential.
The winds of grace are always blowing, but it is you that must raise your sails.
Your attunement with divine will strengthens your resolve to live purposefully and reinforces your capacity to do, to achieve, to become.
Believe in the nature within you, the divine nature, that you are in very deed son or daughter of the living God. There is something of divinity with you, something that stands high and tall and noble.
By surrendering, you are not admitting that your life is unmanageable. You are trusting that God has a better plan for your life than you do, that omniscient spirit sees far beyond the finite vision of your ego.
I used to pray to God that would do this or do that. Now I pray that God will make his will known to me.
What you are actually surrendering is your self-centeredness and the belief that you are alone and unprotected in an uncaring, unforgiving world.
Forgetfulness of self is remembrance of God.
Fully accepting God's unconditional love requires unconditional receptivity, which requires unconditional surrender.
Receive, O Lord, my entire liberty, memory, understanding, and my whole will. All that I have and possess thou hast given me, and to thee I restore them. Give me only your love and your grace, and I will be satisfied. I desire nothing more.
Surrendering is nothing more than a homecoming, a recognition that your will aligns with divine will as naturally as a child's hand fits into its mother's.
Everything is in God's hands, and you are his tool to be used by him as he pleases. Try to grasp the significance of all is his, and you will immediately feel free from all burdens. What will be the result of your surrender to him? None will seem alien. All will be your very own, yourself.
Surrender unconditionally to the source of all that is, and know the beauty, power, and freedom of living life as an unceasing love poem to God.
When we know love matters more than anything, and we know that nothing else really matters, we move into the state of surrender. Surrender does not diminish our power, it enhances it.
The next principle is choose, your choice is either love or fear. You know, just sometimes when you read a passage in a book or hear a conversation or somebody just makes a casual remark and boom, your perception has changed from that point forward. You look at things differently. I read in a book called Teach Only Love by Gerald Jampolsky, who bases his teachings on A Course in Miracles. What he wrote essentially was, in every encounter you have with another human being, that person is either giving love to you or in need of love from you. When I read that, everything changed. And I thought, why wouldn't you want to look at life that way? And I go into detail in the book about how to do that. But shortly after that, I went to the gym where I worked out in Plymouth. And when I walked in, I saw a guy named Bill who I knew a little bit. I've known him for a couple of years. I just see him at the gym. We say hi, talk a little bit. And just to be goofy, he was on the standing calf press with his back to me. So I took my weight belt and I wrapped it around his forehead. I didn't pull or anything, I just, as a way of saying hello. And he whipped around so fast and said, "Phil, if you ever do that again," and he's dropping F-bombs left and right, and he told me he'd take me out in the parking lot and pummel me. And honest to God, as he's in my face shouting, my first thought was, cool. I get to see if this works. So he turned around and stormed off, and I went to the locker room, and I came out. I didn't see him. I went over to the other side of the gym, did some pull-ups. I dropped down, and I look around, and here comes Bill stomping toward me again. And he was just spitting fire. He said, "I mean it, Bill. If you ever do that again," he's going on and on about what he's going to do with me. And the whole time he's talking, I'm just pumping out love from my heart to his, bathing him in love. And he turns around and starts storming off again, and I followed him, and I said, "Bill, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you'd be so upset. I won't do it again." And he just grumbling, and finally he stopped, and I said, "Bill, I didn't know that would upset you. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." And he said, oh, my sister used to do stuff like that to me. It made me so mad. Well, bingo, I triggered something in him, and I said, Bill, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Believe me, it won't happen. And you know, sometimes when somebody's really angry, you can just feel and sense and almost see the palpable energy around them, and they're just so angry. Well, just like that, it was gone. He went from being really angry to being peaceful. Like a magician, he just said, abracadabra. It was that sudden. And he said, that's okay, Phil, don't worry about it. And that was it. And later on in the locker room, I was getting ready to leave. He said, so long, Phil, have a good day. Now, what would have happened if I would have responded at the same level of consciousness that he met me with? It would have escalated, and I would have been tense the whole time I was there. Worse yet, every time I would go to the gym from that point on, I'd feel a little dread, thinking, oh God, I hope I don't see Bill. Instead, choosing to respond to him with love healed perhaps his relationship with the sister to some extent, healed our conflict, and maybe did a lot more healing that I'm not even aware of. And that was the day that I stopped looking at love as a choice and embraced it as a way of life. Choose love and you share your authentic self with the world. Choose fear and you conceal your true identity from others and, worse yet, from yourself.
Love takes off the mask that we fear we cannot live without and know we cannot live within.
Choose fear and you will forever be searching for happiness and fulfillment through other people, possessions, and experiences. Choose love and you discover unimaginable bliss within your own heart.
Everyone chases after happiness, not noticing that happiness is at their heels.
Choose love and you serenely welcome whatever gifts are delivered to your door. Choose fear and you affirm that you do not trust what tomorrow may bring.
Love is a fruit in season at all times and within reach of every hand.
Choose love and you are illuminating your future with the radiant promise of undreamed of possibilities.
Life is a magic vase filled to the brim, so made that you cannot dip into it nor drop from it, but it overflows into the hand that drops treasures into it. Drop in malice and it overflows hate. Drop in charity and it overflows love.
Choose fear and you are casting a pallor over your state of mind and all the days that remain to you.
Fear is that little dark room where negatives are developed.
Choose love and your words and actions help heal the world. Choose fear and your own world becomes a less hospitable place to live.
Speak when you are angry and you will make the best speech you will ever regret.
Choose fear and peace remains a stranger. Choose love and peace gathers you tenderly in its arms.
The trick is in...
Imagine that she was 18 and headed off to college. And I visualized her getting in the car, driving away, looking back and waving one more time, and I waved as she turned the corner. And I'd think to myself, if only I could have 5 more minutes with her when she was 5 years old. Then I'd open my eyes, and I didn't have just 5 minutes, I had years. And that imagine the future exercise helped me appreciate and cherish every moment I had with her that much more. Short story, but it's a good one because I want to emphasize that you don't have to wait for sacred moments to come your way. You can create your own anytime you want. Instead of fretting about having what you want, You will be happier and more peaceful if you focus on wanting what you have.
The foolish man seeks happiness in the distance. The wise grows it under his feet.
What does that mean? You look for and appreciate the gift in every possession, every encounter, every situation.
To be upset over what you don't have is to waste what you do have.
You trust that whatever comes into your life has been divinely designed to help you fulfill the promise of all you are capable of becoming.
Having is kindergarten stuff. Being is graduate school. Having is what children want. Being is what students of mastery seek.
You humbly acknowledge that you will only be given experiences that are appropriate for your present circumstances, your life's purpose, and the level of your consciousness.
Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life.
You recognize that everything that comes your way presents an opportunity to learn and evolve, which further expands your capacity to receive.
Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you.
When a desire surfaces, examine it objectively and learn what you can from it. If a desire leads to a greater appreciation of what you do have, or to a deeper understanding of yourself, it will have served its purpose.
Until you make peace with who you are, you'll never be content with what you have.
If you are not satisfied with what you have, attaining all that you want will still leave you unsatisfied.
Want is a growing giant whom the coat of have was never large enough to cover.
The more unsatisfied you feel, the more you desire. The more you desire, the more you accumulate. The more you accumulate, the more complicated your life. The more complicated your life, the more stress you experience.
If your desires be endless, your cares and fears will be also.
The last principle is look at every moment as a gift. When I was 34, I was unemployed and had a wife, this wife, and a 12-year-old daughter to support. I didn't really have any highly marketable skills, and I was growing more desperate by the day. A few weeks after I lost my job, my tax guy called and said that I had to send a check to the IRS for $2,500 in 30 days. I didn't know how I was going to pay that month's rent, much less a big check to the IRS. I had to remind myself to breathe. I'm sure a few people can relate to that experience. Well, a few weeks later, my dad called. He asked me to meet him at the Monticello in Wendy's. He lived in St. Cloud and I was in Hopkins, so that was halfway in between. Got to Wendy's, we sat down, and without question, without judgment, he handed me a check for $2,500. I was stunned. I knew he couldn't afford that much. And as I sat there, blinking back tears, he told me that he believed in me and that he loved me. It was the most unexpected, generous, and loving gift I'd ever received. And it deepened the already strong bond between us. Fast forward 6 years. I called my dad and asked him to meet me at the Wendy's in Monticello. He didn't have a clue why. We sat down and I thanked him again for that day and told him how much his loving gesture had meant to me. Then I gave him a check for $2,500. It was his turn to be stunned. He tried to thank me, but he was so overcome with emotion that he just lay his head on the table and began sobbing. I leaned over and kissed the top of his head. That moment remains one of the highlights of my life. I'm now grateful for those dark days of no job and no money. Enduring such a stressful period with fear gnawing at the pit of my stomach for days on end was a small price to pay for such beautiful moments of love and grace and redemption. My dad's gone now, but I've got those moments. And even if I was in debt the rest of my life, I'd still feel like the richest man alive. Welcoming every moment as a gift provides revealing glimpses into the mysteries of the universe.
A mature sense of wonder does not need the constant titillation of sensational to keep it alive. It is most often called forth by a confrontation with the mysterious depth of meaning at the heart of the familiar.
Slip any random moment under a metaphysical microscope and you will find that it contains the DNA of God's master plan.
Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you are having in this moment.
You would then understand why every thought you think, every word you speak, every step you take is an outright miracle cloaked in the guise of an ordinary moment.
Our true home is in the present moment. To live in the present moment is a miracle. The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment, to appreciate the peace and beauty that are available now.
This awareness presents a thought-provoking choice. You can view ordinary moments as miracles, or miracles as ordinary moments.
The invariable mark of wisdom is to see the miraculous in the common.
Your perspective depends on how you define ordinary. The higher you elevate your consciousness, the more naturally you behold the ordinary as extraordinary.
Miracles rest not so much upon faces or voices or healing power coming suddenly near to us from afar, but upon our perceptions being made finer so that a moment our eyes can see, our ears can hear what is there about us always.
Of course, you also view the extraordinary as ordinary. No matter how complex a situation may appear to our human eyes, the manifestation of divine will is effortless and instantaneous.
There is no order of difficulty in miracles.
Look through God's eyes with purity of mind and spirit and a deeply rooted sense of unity with all creation, and all becomes clear. What once would have wowed you as metaphysical magic now simply elicits a smile of reverence and gratitude.
If you learn what this world is, how it works, you automatically start getting miracles, what will be called miracles. But of course, nothing is miraculous. Learning what the magician knows, and it's not magic anymore.
The word miracle defines an event that transcends the natural operation of the universe, which implies that we have an exhaustive understanding of universal law.
Miracles are not contrary to nature, but only contrary to what we know about nature.
Yet each new generation of scientists continues to unearth startlingly new discoveries, not only about the world around us, but also about the world within us.
As Western science would put it, inherent human emotion, which occurs when what we are thinking, feeling, and expressing are all in alignment, produces a chemical change in our bodies. And that chemical change has quantum effects that extend beyond our bodies and bring about changes in our physical world. And now it's no longer a miracle.
Ultimately, a miracle is nothing more than a shift in perception. It is simply God manifesting another aspect of God. God can do anything because God is everything.
Miracles, in fact, are a retelling in small letters of the very same story which is written across the whole world in letters too large for some of us to see.
Viewing every decision, every conversation, every incident as an occasion for insight and growth deepens your wisdom, expands your capacity to enjoy life, and inspires you to seize every opportunity to achieve, create, and become.
To me, every hour of the light and dark is a miracle. Every cubic inch of space is a miracle.
When you live every day of your life, viewing every moment as a gift, you become a gift to the world.
If perchance you see no reason for giving thanks, rest assured the fault is in yourself.
And that's all, folks. So thank you very much. Questions, anybody, about the book itself, the content, how I wrote it, anything about it?
I would just like to say, this is a comment asking all of you to really think seriously about getting this book. If you don't have it, I have it for, I don't know, 5 days or whatever, and it's fabulous. I really recommend it. I'm going to buy 2 other copies for my kids for Christmas, and I think it's something that everybody should have because you can open it at any time. And I'm not reading it from the beginning. I just open it, and it's wonderful, so I wanted to thank you. It's
Thank you,
really
Carol.
good.
Don't forget to get a copy for Ziggy there.
Yeah, it gets it osmotically.
Well, thank you. That's great. Yeah, what Carol said is important. I've got a lot of comments from people saying they just like to open it to any page and have that day's meditation or thought, whatever opens. Thank you.
Actually, the first time I opened it, I found exactly what I needed in order to write somebody, and it blew my mind.
That's great. That's how things work, doesn't it?
Can we buy it tonight?
Absolutely. I've got both Through God's Eyes and 60 Seconds here. Including tax, this is 27 and 60 Seconds is 20. And I'll be signing copies right here.
Phil,
Thank
how long
you,
did it take you to write this baby? It's huge.
From the time from the time I realized I had to write it until now, it's been 15 years. Basically, as I said in the introduction, when I started learning about spirituality, I thought, okay, I want to find a book that explains how all these spiritual principles work, how they interact with each other, and how to apply this spiritual wisdom to daily life, you know, in an engaged, organized, entertaining way. And I assumed that I could find that book. Well, I couldn't find that book. And I remember thinking, well, I guess I have to write it myself someday. But I knew I was nowhere ready to write it. I wasn't wise enough. I wasn't experienced enough. So I gathered material for it for about 8 years. I could recognize the concepts and quotes that were be in it. I saw those pieces and I just started collecting, not knowing what the final puzzle would look like. And then about 7 years ago, I started writing it. And I took months off at a time. I had to do other work that produced income. But as it started picking up steam, I started spending more and more time and pretty much full-time on it for a while. Much of it was written at the kitchen table of my roommate Alan there. And I went through many permutations. I thought it was done once when it was about less than a third that size, and then when it was twice that size, I thought it was done again, and I wasn't. And now I always thought, when I'm done, I'll know it. And I realized that it's ready. So it's a good feeling to get it out in the world, because I felt a sense of urgency, because I thought, if something happens to me before I get this done, that's inexcusable. So I feel I had 2 purposes in life. One, to help get our daughter to where she is now, and 2, to get this book out in the world. So my work is done. But I have a lot more work to get it out in the world now, but it feels good.
Well, that's sort of my question. Your work is done. Really?
The main work, the foundation. Now,
Okay, so that's my question.
yeah.
Okay, so now that this is done, with 15 years in the making and the spiritual journey of yours, what is your sense about what's coming?
I always thought years ago, I thought 10 years ago, I saw myself writing a trilogy of books. I wrote a business book, I wrote 60 Seconds, and then this one. I saw that 10 years ago. And I thought, at that point, I'll start getting out in the world and speaking and meeting people instead of being in front of my computer alone all day, every day. So that's just now starting that phase, and that's where I am now, and I'll just see where it takes me.
Phil casts a very large shadow, though, because since we put that book out there, I've had more patients that have come in and they're like, "You know Phil Bolsta'S?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know him." And it's amazing. Tons of people know Phil that I would never expect. So.
Well, there's Kristen right here. That's one of your patients. In fact, Kristen is responsible for me living in California right now.
That's wild, Phil.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us?
Seriously.
Okay. Yeah, I moved to Encinitas, California, half an hour north of San Diego, almost 2 years ago. And I wasn't planning to, but I was looking for a place in St. Cloud, and I tried a couple places, and they picked somebody else, and I was thinking, okay, what do I do now? And about that time, I was driving on 35W to the Mall of America. And I remember thinking, this is not what I feel comfortable with anymore. Lots of speed and big city and noise, and I thought, I just like quiet and slow and peaceful more now. As you get immersed in spirituality, that tends to happen. So I wrote on my blog, and my blog is at the bottom of my bookmark that hopefully you all have. I wrote on my blog just to post about that very thing, and something made me write as I was talking about going on 35W to the Mall of America. At times like this, I feel like I'd like to be at a cabin in the woods. And I don't know why I said that. I've never really been at a cabin in the woods. But Kristen, who I reconnected with after many years, was my Facebook friend, and she wrote, "You want a cabin in the woods? We got one. When do you want to go?" And I was shocked. I didn't expect that, and I usually would say no, but I thought, why not? So I took advantage of Kristen's offer and went up to Wisconsin for, you were coming up with your family that weekend, but it didn't work, so I stayed an extra week. I was there a week and a half. And I was walking on the nature trail there every day, about 3 miles, and it was a beautiful October day, perfect weather. And I was just casually thinking, well, winter will be here pretty soon. And the thought filled me with such dread that I thought, that's it, I'm gone, I'm moving to Encinitas. And I stopped, and I said, wait a minute, did I just decide to move to Encinitas? I guess I did. So,
Had you been there before?
I've been there about 4 times over the past 10 years. It's kind of the epicenter of Self-Realization Fellowship, which is an organization started by Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi. And that's the path I was attracted to. And so I started looking into it, taking time, and it started happening. And 6 weeks later, I was in Encinitas. So I'm here now for a couple of months. Yeah, so thank you, Kristen.
I'm here if you need me, Phil.
Oh, and by the way, I mentioned Self-Realization Fellowship. I started working on this book, and I was teaching at Pathways, at Hennepin Lake, the Health Crisis Resource Center. I was teaching this stuff. I had come to this path myself 2 years before I heard of Autobiography of a Yogi. And then when I read that, it felt like I was coming home, because pretty much everything in that path is aligned with where I already was. So learning about Self-Realization Fellowship just helped deepen my commitment and devotion and understanding. What else? Questions? No questions?
How much longer are you going to be in town?
3 weeks.
Are you done writing books?
I don't know. I finished my trilogy, so we'll see, or maybe not.
It seems like you have the gift to really impact a lot of people, so I just don't think your work is done, but what form will it take? Will it be a book again, or will it be something else? But
Well, thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's basically I want to get this book out and have it do the work for me, and I don't even know what's happening. That'd be great. Well, if no more questions or comments, I'll sign some books here. Jerry will have the books right here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.